We have this illusion of free will, but it's not really free will. It's not really a choice. You're not condemned to be free. You're condemned to believe that you're free. And that's what causes, and I mean that causes, so much of your depression and your anxiety, because you intuitively know that you're not free, but you've also been conditioned to believe that you want to be free. But do you really want to be free? What happens when someone gives you freedom? How does that turn out for you? Does that turn out as an A for us? Should you be free? What happens when you're free? Put your phones away, do this, get this done, here's how you do it, walks you through every single step, has popsicle sticks to call on you, to keep you accountable, and forces you to do it. We complain, but don't we do better? So which is better for you? To be free? Or is it better to be forced and condemned and led around? If you understand the general answer to that question, then you're going to start to understand how it is that fascism comes into power. Because we don't really want to be free. But moreover, maybe they're going to come and save us. They're going to give us technology, because technology is what's going to save us. Isn't technology exactly what has us in the situations that we're in right now? Climate change and pollution and stuff in the water that's actually changing our genetics, and nuclear war, and isn't technology exactly the thing that has us where we are right now? But we're hoping that an alien will come along and give us more of it? Maybe we're hoping they're going to come along and rule us. That's probably what it really is. And then everything will be perfect. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah.
What's another direction you could take this into?
There's no other direction. There's only one way. We could take it in the direction that he's wrong. You're not responsible for the things that you do. When you guys were, before you guys were born, you guys remember the character creation screen before you were born? Remember that, where you got to choose how tall you were, and you got to choose you got to allocate points for how smart you would be, how tall you would be. You got to choose the family that you'd be born into, all that. Oh yeah, we all remember that, right? No, that's the thing. A lot of your life choices are going to be shaped not by the actual choices that you make, but by the constraints that you were born into. So, for example, I've told you before that the number one predictor of your success in life is going to be your IQ. It only accounts for about 16% of your life outcome, but that's still the most significant one. Did anybody choose your IQ? Well, that's genetic, man. It's genetic, and it's a little bit of behavior, meaning that your brain development will be determined a lot by what your mom ate while she was pregnant with you. So if your mom ate well when she was pregnant with you, it can influence your IQ by up to 10%, probably close to about 5%. And none of us chose that. You're going to be born into so the number two predictor of your success in life is going to be conscientiousness. How good of attention you pay to details. Are you a person who says good enough? Are you a person who uses the phrase, it doesn't matter, a lot? If so, you're probably low in conscientiousness. If you're a person who dots your I's, and you're very careful about that. If you're a person who writes in sentences by using a lot of lower cases, like I imagine rather than I imagine rather than like I imagine. If you're someone who writes with a lot of lower cases and doesn't use punctuation, really good chance you're low in conscientiousness. Why don't you write in capitals? Why don't you use punctuation? It doesn't matter. You're probably low in conscientiousness. It might not matter in a text, but it absolutely matters in the real world when you're trying to get jobs, trying to get promotions. Oh, I'll worry about it then. Well, why wouldn't you just worry about it now and be good at it now? Because the chances are that when you actually really need that skill, it's probably going to fail on you. And what do I know? I'm only a teacher who grades these things constantly and sees this manifest and sees my students who go off to college, and some of whom will still write in these improper ways and get poor grades and drop out because it's too late for them to figure out how to get it right. Now, your conscientiousness is based on largely just kind of the family that you grew up in, the people around you. Did the people around you force you to be conscientious? Some of you, I'm sure some of you had that mom who would give you a task, like go clean the dishes, and then would go in there and check the dishes. And if there's one little thing on, that wasn't washed off, make you rewash all the dishes. that was someone who put conscientiousness into you. And by the way, just because you write lower cases, I'm not saying you therefore are unconscientious. I'm just saying it's an indicator of that. If you had a family that insisted that you wash the dishes right, that you clean things right, by the cleaning is one of those ways that little kids learn to be conscientious. It's one of the only tasks that they can actually do. Then if you were raised in a family like that, congratulations, that's now your number 2 predictor of your success in life. So the number 1 and 2 most important or most significant predictors of your success in life are completely out of your control, initially. And then even if later on you have some jerk who comes along in your English class and tells you all of this, it's easy to dismiss because it's hard to do it right now. Whatever, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, what does he know? What does the PhD in psychology know? Oh, who knows? And it's easy to dismiss it because it's convenient. Because if you accept what I'm saying, then that means you have to make a decision now, a choice. Are you going to be unconscientious, and then you now realize that you're going to be forfeiting a significant level of possible success in your life, plus your children's lives, because you're going to be bringing them into that, and those are the same characteristics that you instill into them? Or are you going to stop and go, holy crud, I think I need to start paying more attention to detail. And you'll be surprised what you miss when you all of a sudden start paying attention to detail. You'll be surprised by what you missed, your whole life. But again, those are things that, whether or not you accept what I'm saying, is going to largely be based on the way that you were raised also. I talk to some parents, sometimes it's like, some people just had a terrible time in high school and never got over it. And then they'll talk to me and it's like their kid is completely, totally, 100% objectively wrong about something. And they'll start talking to me like somehow like I'm their 9th grade English teacher who they hated or something. You have to kind of snap people like that back into reality. And those are probably people who raise you to tell you things like teachers don't know what they're talking about. By the way, you should all get college degrees, right? But teachers don't know what they're talking about. Well, then I don't know why on earth you'd pay attention to that advice. Keep that in mind, by the way. Every teacher you've ever had has a college degree. Every single one. The substitute teachers who can't open a door sometimes, they have to send someone to the office to figure out which way to turn the key, that person has a college degree. So if you ever sit there and you're thinking like, I can't do it, it's too hard, just remember that one teacher, whichever one it is. That one teacher. And just be like, I can do this. So if you ever think like it's out of your reach, you can't do it, you can do it. It's possible. Just remember that one teacher. If you ever think you can't get a PhD, just remember that one asshole, that one stupid one who couldn't spell imagine earlier. You can do it if you want to. But don't rely on that whole like, if I wanted to. No. But you could. Why not make yourself better? Why not do these things? But again, that's going to largely be based on where you grew up, who you grew up with, how you were raised, what values were instilled in you. Was the value instilled in you for education? And I mean education, not piece of paper, but education. Do you actually value learning and knowing and curiosity? Or are you running around because you've been raised to be taught that education is just a piece of paper you get so that you can go get a job that will get you other little green pieces of paper? Because if you've been taught that it's just about a diploma, then what you've been taught is that sitting in a classroom and just taking in a grade at the end is good enough. And you find yourself using that phrase a lot, good enough, good enough, good enough, good enough. And then you're going to probably raise children someday with the idea that it's good enough, good enough, good enough, good enough. But what the point I'm getting at is that none of it is really your fault. It's nobody's fault because you're socially conditioned this way by society, by families, to the point that you think that you're making choices, but you're not. What you're just relying on is how you were raised. And it's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not putting anybody down. It's just explaining the scenario, the situation. And so you might think, well, then I can turn this around. No. If after today you turned this around, guess why you turned it around? Because you heard that talk. If you had never encountered that talk before, you never would have turned it around. If you become even hardened in your position because you don't like me and you don't like what I'm saying to you, then you might think like, well, I could have turned around whenever I wanted to. No, you couldn't have, because you were caused to be hardened because of what you had heard and when you heard it and all that. We have this illusion of free will, but it's not really free will. It's not really a choice. You're not condemned to be free. You're condemned to believe that you're free. And that's what causes, and I mean that causes so much of your depression and your anxiety, because you intuitively know that you're not free, but you've also been conditioned to believe that you want to be free. But do you really want to be free? Isn't it? I mean, how many of us really want to be free? What happens when someone gives you freedom? Hell, what happens if you have, like one teacher, let's say, who doesn't stand over and monitor you and tell you what you have to do and lets you be you, doesn't check up on you when you go to the bathroom, doesn't time you on that, sees that you'll have computers out even though you don't use any computers in that class for their stuff, will take a stack of quizzes back because you have like 2 people in the class who did it when the whole class was supposed to do it. In other words, if you have a teacher who actually gives you lots of freedom to be and do what you do, how does that turn out for you? Does that turn out as an A for us? Does that turn out with 64%, I think it was, of people failing the class? You really need to be, should you be free? What happens when you're free? What expresses? Now, if that teacher stands above you like other ones, put your phones away, do this, get this done, here's how you do it, walks you through every single step, has popsicle sticks to call on you, to keep you accountable, and forces you to do it. We complain, but don't we do better? So which is better for you? To be free? Or is it better to be forced and condemned and led around? If you understand the general answer to that question, then you're going to start to understand how it is that fascism comes into power. Because we don't really want to be free. We want to be told what to do. We want to feel like we're free. We want to be free to do what we want, but we don't want to be held responsible or accountable for what we do. Because then when that teacher comes along and most people fail, people get angry with that teacher. Let's just say, hypothetically, if that person existed. Oh, he's such a jerk. I failed because he talks too much. I get bored. That's why. It's not because he doesn't force you to listen to him, does he? He doesn't tell you to put your stuff away, does he? He's got like 2.5 rules. Don't put your head down, let's say, and no audio out loud, and don't have your AirPods in while they're talking, but doesn't really enforce that last one. How do you behave? How do you perform? You start to make excuses for why you're not doing well there. None of us really want to be free. This is why we worship gods, by the way. There's no God out there, but we worship one because we want to believe in one. Because if there's a God out there, then that means that, I'm going to be saved from myself. This is why, you guys saw the aliens and the Peruvian aliens in Mexico? Yeah. And here's the thing. It's such incredible horseshit. Just look at it. Come on. Just think about it for like a couple seconds. The guy who presented them, this is like the 3rd time he's done this. And they've always been fake. And yet we still sit there and go like, oh my God, he took him to the Congress in Mexico. Why didn't he take it to a Congress that would have insisted on getting actual tests done on the specimens? No, whatever, so you think we're alone? That's 2 completely different things, man. This can be false, and we can have other aliens out there. Or this can be true, and there can be no other aliens out there. Or, in other words, it doesn't have to be one or the other. But this is so objectively, clearly, totally horseshit. But we really want to believe in aliens. Why? Because then that means that we're not alone, which is comforting. But moreover, maybe they're going to come and save us. They're going to give us technology, because technology is what's going to save us. Isn't technology exactly what has us in the situations that we're in right now? Isn't technology we're talking about climate change and pollution and stuff in the water that's actually changing our genetics and nuclear war, and isn't technology exactly the thing that has us where we are right now? I don't know, how many world wars were there when we didn't even have guns or swords? Even when we had swords, how many world wars were there? Technology is exactly the thing that has us where we are right now. And so, but we're hoping that an alien will come along and give us more of it. Maybe we're hoping they're going to come along and rule us. That's probably what it really is. We're hoping they're going to come along, fix us, because if they fix us, we don't have to fix ourselves. And then everything will be perfect. Yeah.
Taking into account like this even if they are small, like the benefits from technology, like let's say like your buddy has a disease and like he would have died in 1400s or something, but now he just can go to the doctor and get a quick consultation, and then I don't know, you know what I mean? But like with that comes a huge issues in society, but like the technology and then the mental health stuff. But so is it worth it? Or it doesn't really matter if it's worth it now because it's here, right? But it's better to focus on those small things, like maybe a family member getting saved or something from medicine.
Yeah. Are we actually saved from medicine?
I don't know. Hopefully.
I'll give you a heads up. Not really. Not really. You've heard like in the medieval era, I'm sure you've heard about this, like the average life expectancy was like mid-30s, late 30s. We died so much younger back then. We're like, wow, we died so much younger. Okay, hear this. We didn't. That's not true. That was the average life expectancy. What medicine has done is it's helped us reduce the infant mortality rate. If somebody survived past their third year of life in the medieval era, they lived just as long as we live now. If you died before you were 3, then you did not live, of course, just as long as we live now. But all that medicine does is medicine allows us to put more chemicals into our body to offset the other chemicals that we're putting into our bodies. You live just as long as somebody from the 1400s right now. If everybody in here would live just as long as someone from the 1400s. Presuming, by the way, you didn't die from a war, because there is less war right now. Those are pretty much the 2 key determinants: infant mortality and combat. If you manage to get past 3 years old and didn't find yourself in a war, which very few of us will, then you live just as long as modern day people. But didn't they have like heart disease problems? Now look at their diets. Look at what they ate. Look at how they exercised. Look at how they worked. In other words, we've developed medicines that have compensated for our sedentary lives. We've developed medicines that allow us to eat the things that we eat, but they haven't extended our lives. If we ate the things that we ate, and if we lived the way that we lived, and we didn't have those things, well, yeah, I suppose we'd probably die younger, even younger than medieval times. But no, it doesn't really keep us alive longer. It encourages us in bad habits. Dope. I don't want to move on today. I was really hoping that would take the whole period. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Neat.